Hello and welcome to another racing news video that I have today. I know I'm a bit late to all of this stuff that I'm about to talk about, which I do apologize for. There's just a lot of information that I actually want to get into in this video, so I thought why not wait a little bit and make sure everything is accurate and higher quality before I get into actually putting stuff out. So the first thing I want to talk about is the F1 2026 schedule. Honestly, a lot of these changes on here, which honestly there aren't that many, but all these changes on here don't surprise me one bit. The first one, Imola, gone. Liberty Media and Formula One have made it clear that they want to expand, and 2 races in Italy doesn't really help with that. So as much as fans might hate it, it is not going to be on the schedule anymore. We will now have only Monza as the Italian race. Their replacement, though, Madrid. They're finally on the F1 calendar, and some might be wondering, why the heck can't Italy have 2 races, but Spain is suddenly getting 2 races now? Let me try to explain it for a bit. But honestly, before I actually get into that, if Formula One wanted to replace Imola, and they actually did it with a higher quality track like Hockenheim or Sepang, I don't think any of the backlash would actually be there, because they're bringing back an actually good circuit that is proven to have good racing, but instead we have freaking Madrid. In case I haven't made my feelings clear before, the circuit at Madrid, it sucks. Little to no overtaking opportunities. Some of the corners are actually really dangerous, and I seriously don't know why you would replace a track with something 100 times worse. And hell, we were already clowning on Barcelona for being a boring track. Well, now they got something even worse for us. And onto the 2 races in the same country topic. Barcelona actually has a contract which runs through 2026, but Formula One wants Madrid to be on the calendar as soon as possible because money talks. And of course, I don't think Barcelona wants to give up an F1 race, considering they still get great crowds. So I guess they decided to let Barcelona host one more time. And honestly, who knows what that race is going to be called? I don't know if it's going to be the Barcelona Grand Prix, European Grand Prix, but I will be shocked if they actually do get extended beyond 2026. I don't think they will, because extending them but not handing one to Imola, it's basically just another middle finger. I don't know why they would do that. So assuming that all goes to plan, the second date that will actually be open in 2027 will be the Dutch Grand Prix, because after this year, the Dutch Grand Prix will be no more. Zandvoort has made it clear they do not want to extend their contract for reasons. And that now leaves 2 spots open. Who's going to take over those 2 spots? Probably the bids that I've talked about before: Korea, Thailand, Malaysia, South Africa. Who the heck knows? But there have been a lot of updates in regards to both new bids and bids that have already been talked about before. Morocco has now joined the list in multiple countries that want to host an F1 race, and they have currently a $1.2 billion plan to host a race in their country. This track is being planned on being built in Tangier, which is in the northern part of Morocco. They also plan on building a theme park, a shopping mall, and a marina for the circuit, and it is supposed to be grade 1 ready to host both Formula One and MotoGP. Definitely adventurous. Honestly don't know anything else into this bid. Here is Tangier on a map in case you want more reference. I'm surprised though that they decided to build a track here and not a more recognizable city like Rabat or Casablanca. Of course, Rabat is the capital, and Casablanca is a well-known coastal city within Morocco. However, if they choose to go forward with this bid, they're going to face a lot of competition within their own continent. Cape Town has joined the list of countries that will potentially host an F1 race within Africa after submitting a bid for a street circuit around DHL Stadium, a well-known stadium used for the 2010 FIFA World Cup. The track is planned on being a 5.7-kilometer track within the Greenpoint Sport Tourism Precinct, and the promoters will be Cape Town Grand Prix South Africa. They have been working on this for a while, and they actually hosted a race before for Formula E, just on a shortened version of the circuit. Although I'd say the race was successful, Formula E though decided not to keep racing there. So now we're going to look elsewhere, and Formula One, I guess, is hitting the table. And the layouts on top at the beginning of this article aren't the only potential layouts. There's even one here, which I don't know how that's going to be possible with that tight of a chicane within the stadium. But, of course, they're not the only city in South Africa who wants an F1 race. Of course, the actual Kyalami circuit has hosted F1 before during the 80s and early 90s, 1992 and 1993. And since that circuit is already an established and entertaining circuit to race on, Cape Town will definitely have a lot they have to prove in order to say they're ready for Formula One, in my opinion. But when it comes to an actual F1 race in Africa, that's probably not going to happen within the short term. Multiple other sources are now reporting that Formula One is temporarily giving up on racing in South Africa in the short term, but they're still hoping that they will get an African race within the next, 5 to 10 years. F1 chief Stefano Domenicali has revealed there are still things missing from current offers on the table as the sport targets a return in Africa in the near future. F1 has not raced in the African continent since 1993, and even though there's been a big push in Rwanda, especially given last year's FIA prize-giving ceremony was there in Rwanda, because there aren't certain key reassurances. So I guess we have to wait a little bit longer to have an F1 race in Africa. But one of the more likely countries, Rwanda, is facing a lot more trouble than that. This article in particular from the BBC has pointed out that F1 is currently monitoring a conflict within the Democratic Republic of the Congo, which is potentially involving a violent rebel group being funded by Rwanda. For those who don't know what's happening, a violent rebel group has been trying to, overthrow the government over in the DRC. They have been responsible for a lot of atrocities within the country, killing many innocent people. They are also potentially being funded directly by the Rwandan government, and a lot of evidence is actually showing up to prove that, including helping training their rebel members. And because of that, the DRC's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Therese Kayakwamba Wagner, has expressed concern about hosting a race in Rwanda, basically saying, why would you do such a thing when Rwanda is doing this to our country, and if you do host a race, there's going to be a lot of blood on your hands. But that hasn't really stopped them from racing in Saudi Arabia or China, hasn't it? F1, of course, has raced in a lot of controversial countries before. Will drivers or other people try to influence a boycott of a race if an F1 race in Rwanda does happen? Who knows? But an F1 spokesperson has said that F1 is currently looking into this matter and seeing whether or not we should exclude Rwanda from having a bid for an F1 race. So we'll see how that ends up going down. But before we can actually get into other F1 bids, there's actually a new CEO of Liberty Media, and his name is Derek Chang. If you don't know, Liberty Media are the promoters behind Formula One. Derek Chang used to work for Everpass Media, which had a deal with NFL and Premier League to provide live sports to various business and commercial establishments. Another question is, will this hiring, in a way, potentially sway certain Formula One bids to end up a certain way. I don't know. I know Formula One has already had multiple races in the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia, before Mohammed bin Salman became FIA president. So, I honestly don't know what will happen in the meantime. But now we finally have an update on Korea's F1 bid to host a race in Incheon. And the mayor of that city, Yoo Jung-bok, has made it a point that they want to develop the city into the next level and potentially make it a city on par with Seoul when it comes to economic and trading influence. Yoo Jung-bok has already flown across the world to both Japan and Monaco to, I guess, get new economic and urban development ideas and plans in place. And he's even attended the Japanese Grand Prix to deliver the letter of intent to host an F1 race to Stefano Domenicali. He's also planning on building a Korean trade complex within the city for overseas Koreans. He is also going to New York and New Jersey to speak with certain officials when it comes to economic and urban development. So he's taking this idea of developing the city into something else really seriously, and that also plays in part to the Formula One race, which he claims will turn Incheon into a top 10 global city and bring numerous economic benefits. Of course, Las Vegas, even though there have been, of course, traffic and a lot of other issues on the news, it still brought along a lot of benefits to the city. But now it's time for the actual development itself. If you go onto the city of Incheon's actual website, there has been a segment where Incheon has says that talks are now advancing when it comes to a Formula One race, and a memorandum of understanding is now on the table. Incheon brings its efforts in full swing to host the prestigious Formula One Grand Prix for the first time in 2027. This month, the city will commission a feasibility study and initial planning process for the event. The feasibility study is scheduled to begin next month and will take 5 months to complete. So, since this article came out in February and somehow I didn't pick up on it, the study is actually probably going on for a few months, and we might hear an update before September comes around. By mid-2025, the city plans to establish a basic framework for the F1 event and sign a memorandum of understanding with the F1 group. The city will then proceed to negotiate specific hosting conditions and conduct necessary administrative procedures for national funding support, including feasibility verification by a designated government agency. So, even though no one's talking about it on the news, the talks still seem to be advancing, and Incheon is still confident in a Formula One event taking place. But another certain country with a lot of oil money might play spoiler to all of this. According to Ben Evans from F1 Oversteer, a second F1 race in a certain country is pretty much on the cards. Of course, this article starts talking about Madrid, but when you scroll down, Saudi Arabia potentially wants a second F1 race. I know over in Shadiya, near the capital of Riyadh, they're building a much bigger and more, I guess, fancy-looking Formula One circuit. There's even the part where they have, like, what, a 20-story tall turn one in terms of elevation, which is insane. And at least from a track map, I'll say it honestly looks way better than Jeddah. Like, there seems to be actual passing zones and sharp hairpin corners and even other ones where you can potentially line up a pass. So I'll give them that. But why a second F1 race? Are we seriously going to have to talk about double standards again? And all for what? Because Saudi Arabia has billions of oil money in their reserves? And even worse, they don't even need to have two races to highlight both circuits. there's already been rumors before that once this circuit is done, they will actually be alternating in between tracks. So like a certain year will be Jeddah, the next, Chadia, and so on. So they don't need to have two F1 races. They wanted to build a crappy circuit in Jeddah, and I know that circuit has had some exciting moments, but let's be honest, a lot of parts of that track are still impossible to pass on. I still don't like the track. Like, I'm trying so hard not to turn this into a full-on rant against Saudi Arabia, but come on, at least just alternate the circuits. Give the actual open dates to countries that actually do want to host and are established. I know Malaysia and Germany aren't putting up as much money and interest right now, but they've hosted Formula One before and had amazing races. They deserve a Formula One race more than anyone. And to be honest, they deserve an F1 race much more than Korea and Thailand. I'm sure a F1 race in Incheon could look good, and they could build actually a really good street circuit if they use the right corners, the right streets, and all that stuff. But since this is a brand new bid, there's a lot of unknowns with it. With Malaysia and Germany, on the other hand, there aren't any unknowns. If Korea or another country like that does end up hosting, I'll give them a chance, but I'll just say I'll be really pissed off if somehow certain countries like Spain or Saudi Arabia still somehow get two F1 races. Thank you all for sticking around. If you would like to comment about any of these potential bids in the comments down below, go ahead. If you also want to hear more about Formula One bids in the news, please like, subscribe. It'll mean a lot to the channel. And I'll see you all another time.